Greetings, fellow citizens of Tattooine. This is episode 37 of Pop Jedi. I'm, of course, your host, Rob DiLauro, and with me, as always, is the wonderful skin tone Twilight, Miss JennaSayWhat. Jenna, what's going on?
Not too much, Rob. What's going on with you?
You know what? Actually, I just want to say this before we start. We are not necessarily talking about the Book of Boba Fett today, but I'm just so happy that Twi'leks are actually getting their due finally in the Star Wars universe.
You know what? It's not just that, but it's also like there was an orange one. There was a yellow one. I'm a yellow Twi'lek. I'm getting a green Leku soon and a red Leku, but I saw a green Twi'lek. And I'll get into all of that, but my God, I'm so happy. I am thrilled beyond all measure that us Twi'leks are getting our dues.
Yeah, they're not just dancing slaves anymore.
Finally.
Yeah. They're polishing helmets and throwing coins in there and running bars. It's cool. I like it. So we are absolutely talking about Boba Fett, the character, today, and that's why I am wearing this garb and my perfectly shaped bald head to honor the Tusken Raider version of Mr. Boba Fett, which, of course, is a series on Disney Plus right now. If you guys aren't watching it, they just dropped the second episode, which I'm actually calling 310 to Tattooine. And it was absolutely masterful. It was directed by Steph Green. And incidentally, Dean Cundy of the original John Carpenter's Halloween is the director of photography on that episode. So there's a little bit of a spot there for me too. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, wonderful job on the show. But we actually wanted to open the book, as it were, and talk about some of the history of Boba Fett in regards to like where he came from, our thoughts on the character. You know, did it mean anything? Did he mean anything to us when we were young? Does it mean more to us when we're old? I have some things to add to the equation. I'm certain Jenna has her thoughts as well. So let's start off with the history. Jenna, do you know anything about Boba Fett and his origins when it comes to Lucasfilm and their creation?
So going into this, I had no idea. Like, I didn't start watching Star Wars really until episode 1, where I was like, this is my Star Wars. So that's where we're at, people. So, but I cared nothing about Boba Fett. Like, I felt nothing. Like whenever my dad first made me watch Star Wars, I was like, my dad's like, what'd you think of Luke and Leia? I was like, he's like, who did you like? I was like, R2-D2 and the Jawas and like basically all the animal type creatures in R2-D2. And my dad's like, okay, cool. Like he was like, yes, you are a Trekkie, because at that point I was nonstop watching Trek with my dad, because that was whenever TNG came out. So I'm a Trekkie. I can't help it.
Yeah. Obviously you're dressed like a Twilight today, so obviously Star Wars is in your heart somewhere for sure.
A little bit, yeah. It was,
and of course, working on a show called Pop Jedi. I mean,
still Trekkie though.
Yeah, you certainly are for sure.
I really am.
But do you know about where the idea for the character Boba Fett came from? Do you know anything about that at all?
I did not. Please tell me. Enlighten me, Rob.
All right. So basically, we're just going to go through the actual, not technically the origin story, but the actual creation when it comes to George Lucas and his ideas. So originally, George Lucas wanted to make sort of like a squad of stormtroopers that were basically like Death Troopers from Rogue One. But they didn't have the money. So he ended up saying to his production crew, why don't we turn this character into a bounty hunter? So that would give them the opportunity to create one costume and kind of work with that.
Also, should we say that there's spoilers in this just in case I slip up?
I mean, we're going to be talking a little bit about the show, but I
guys, just wanted to go ahead and warn people if since we're starting to get into it, and I'll spill the beans. I can't help it. So I just want to go ahead and Slight spoiler warning for anybody.
Yeah, and quite honestly, guys, if you've not watched any of the Mandalorian season 1 or 2 or any of this Book of Boba Fett, like get off your bantha butts and do this. Like seriously, like Mandalorian's been on streaming for quite some time, so you got an opportunity. Okay, but yeah, so his first introduction was actually in the best way to put it is the divisive Star Wars Holiday Special, and he appeared as an actual animated character, which is something that actually George Lucas agreed to. He didn't want the character like featured as a live action character within the Star Wars Holiday Special. If you guys aren't familiar with how George Lucas feels about the Star Wars Holiday Special, he wanted to take every single copy and just bury it in the desert. He's not very fond of it. So all that
I've yet to watch that.
Yeah, all that Life Day merchandise that came out from the Disney store last year, I wouldn't be surprised if George Lucas was like walking through the mall and he just saw all that stuff and just started like smashing up a store. He really, really hates the holiday special, like really hates it.
He just pulls a bat from his back, like just somehow, and he's like,
yeah, just goes ham on the store with a fake like lightsaber, like.
Oh my God, that would be hilarious. He's like, I hated this.
This just in: George Lucas, creator of Star Wars, loses his mind in a Disney store in California.
No charges were pressed because he owns
the police.
This company too. It's like it would be two gigantic companies fighting against each other. I'd be like, you know what? Let's call it even. Like,
yeah. He probably owns a piece of Disney anyway. So what do you know about the Star Wars Holiday Special? Are you familiar with that?
So
everyone at all
just keeps screaming at me that it's like the worst Star Wars of all. But I'm scared to watch it, honestly, because I think that because everybody hates it, I'm going to unintentionally like it because I have to be defiant for whatever reason. But I'm kind of scared to watch it because then I'm going to like.
I gotta be real honest with you. I absolutely despised it for many, many years. And I you know what, as you get older, like you see something that's like maybe a little more retro or whatever. And it kind of, like feels like it warms your heart a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not exactly bile anymore. It's more, like a Grinch effect. Like, oh, this is kind of sweet, from a time long ago,
I gotcha. Like, not to mention the fact that everyone collectively hates it. So it's like,
so you have to love it just to counteract the hate.
Yeah, it's bringing everyone together. And I mean,
Yeah, in the worst possible ways, probably. All right.
So, George Lucas at the front of the party going, "We attack at dawn."
Yeah. So basically, Boba Fett appeared in the Marin County parade in the 70s. This was actually before he appeared in Empire Strikes Back. So in California, there was the Marin County Fair, and George Lucas and Lucasfilm ended up introducing the character within the parade along with Darth Vader. Darth Vader was actually obviously a more well-known character due to A New Hope, but there was just something about Boba Fett and the look, and there's actually a really, really incredible. There's a documentary on Disney Plus. It's about 21 minutes long, and it shows you actual footage of Boba Fett walking through this, through this parade or whatever, and kids are just losing their minds, and like the guys are pictures Boba Fett and stuff. And this is before they even see a stitch of film.
And I know that he like was a huge like pop icon basically like at that
Instantly.
time. Like I like knowing like now that I'm older and I actually do like Star Wars, but now I realize how like crazy the fandom was for that, and it was so unheard of because like they didn't expect him to go anywhere at all.
They really didn't.
I mean, like that, like you said, that one and done, and it's like, wow, the fans got what they wanted. Like I feel like isn't that one of the first times that like they were actually like a thing gave people what they wanted?
Well, what's really interesting is like when the original costume was first created, it was absolutely like completely off white. There was no actual color to it at all. And I think they just kind of added to the character as time went on. And of course,
Mhm.
they painted the the armor like a certain color, and they ended up using a rock to like chip like little pieces out of it, and like
Yep.
make some dents and stuff like that just to give it character. And it just kind of like grew
Interesting.
from that. It was just like all a bunch of people just bringing all their different ideas to it.
Yeah.
Even the coolest, and honestly, I think it's the best addition to the character myself, is that somebody just said, you know what, if he's kind of like a bounty hunter, why don't we give him a pair of spurs? And somebody was like, okay. So they ended, so of course, when he showed up in Empire Strikes Back in the sound editing, when he shows up for the first time, you hear ching, ching, ching.
Yep.
Like,
I really love that. Whenever I like start researching the character more for like this episode, but like whenever I heard that or read that, I was like, "Oh my god, that's genius." Like it kind of because he kind of gives me like an old western kind
yeah.
of dude feel
Mhm.
already because like yeah, so it just kind of made sense that they put spurs on him. So I was like, "Oh my god, that's so cool." Like that's
Yeah,
such a
especially
cool addition.
with his origins within the Book of Boba Fett, which we're seeing right now. It's definitely a western.
Yeah.
It's like Dances with Wolves, except with Tusken Raiders. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
and that's another thing I do want to mention too, is that you know, it's interesting how this world is kind of playing out, because when we saw New Hope when we were kids, like like when Obi-Wan talks about these Tusken Raiders, like, they're sand people, which, for better for worse, probably not the best, description for them in this day and age. Um, but yeah, he basically makes them these useless like monsters or whatever. You know what I mean? They travel single file, and they're, like, they're just
I love
demonic,
them.
things that just murder everybody and this and that. And then we're actually seeing a culture like being built around these characters, and it's wonderful. It's so, you know what I mean? Like, I've
Mhm.
always had a soft spot for sand people anyway. So the fact that we're actually seeing more of their culture and their wars and
I
stuff is
love
fantastic.
it, and I also love the fact that I believe, because my ASL is real rusty now, guys, but, I do believe that they use ASL. They just have such a cool way about them, like, I always liked them because, again, I liked the weird off characters, not even, like, the
Mhm.
main cast, I was like but I digress. I loved the Sand People, and I was like, "Oh my god, this" like, the new episode
Yeah.
I'm
So
losing
let's
my
go to
mind.
Empire Strikes Back, which of course is the main introduction for Mr. Boba
Mhm.
Fett. Um, what are your memories of Empire as a kid? Were you affected by it at all? And like the character itself at this point, or
So now that we're kind of, like, breaking down The Empire Strikes Back and how he has, like, spurs and he's kinda like, this was kinda like a Western, it all makes sense why I did not like that movie. I did not like it. And, like, even now, I'm still a little like, like, at the end of it, I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't get the big deal, like, at all. It's just
Mhm.
like, rewatching it and stuff, I'm still just not really that into it. Like, I'm into certain parts of the movie, but not, like, it as a whole. Like, I'll take it or leave it, to be honest.
I think the
But
thing
yeah,
about Boba
it
Fett in Empire Strikes Back for me is just the fact that like this conflict between him and Han Solo is obviously like very deeply rooted. You know what I mean? Like when
Mhm.
it comes to Han Solo is like just this wanted guy, and all this stuff, and like it's really fleshed out really without saying anything. Um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And honestly, like Boba probably says like maybe two lines in the movie. Um,
Mhm.
but he's got so much character and charisma just from those
Yeah.
those few
And
moments that
he's
you
a
see
real
him.
badass, though. Like, you can tell how tough he is and how, like, smart he is as well.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. It's like, we never really got to see him like flex anything that he had in
Oh,
terms of his
really? He
strength
did.
or anything. You know what I mean? So Boba, of course, shows up in Return of the Jedi.
Mhm.
He ends up picking up Han Solo as his bounty, and puts him on the Fire Star, which is now being called now, but I refuse. It's Slave One. I stick by it. Um, but anyway, yeah. So he shows up with the bounty Han Solo. There's actually a really great comic series that kind of offshoots this, called War of the Bounty Hunters. It just came out maybe a few months ago. It's really incredible. But it shows like how Boba basically loses Han in carbonite, and like there's all this different syndicate stuff or whatever. And there is a great appearance in that, which I think is actually going to happen in the actual live action series, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So what did you think of Boba in Return of the Jedi? Because honestly, like, I mean, they kind of made him a little bit of a punk.
Yeah. I thought that they kind of let him down as a character, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
I feel like they really half-assed it.
He did look really cool, though.
He did. No, absolutely. Like the costume design I felt was a little bit better. So yeah, I just felt like they just really half-assed it, and I feel like that's such a like terrible thing to do to these fans, especially with how big of the character. Like, he's basically Star Wars' Deadpool, where everybody's like Boba Fett, like, you know. That's kind of how I feel with Star Wars, and I just feel like, man, they just let that whole group down.
So if you guys aren't familiar, they are actually being sent to the Sarlacc to pay tribute to Jabba the Hutt and his power. And Boba Fett happens to be on the skiff. And of course, because Han Solo escaping from carbonite, thankfully to Miss Princess Leia. Basically, he's blind, and he accidentally hits Boba Fett in his rocket pack with an oar. He ends up flying into the sail barge, into the mouth of the Sarlacc. And there you go. That's our Boba Fett for Return of the Jedi. What's really fascinating to me, though, Jen, is like just the lore that came from this, moment,
Yeah.
The fact that he's in the Sarlacc pit, and like that's again, something we'll get into in a minute. But it's amazing. For 40 years, him just getting hit with an oar accidentally from a blind Han Solo becomes like this legacy that they just build
it's
on.
wild. Just like that little bit into something so large.
So of course, when we were kids, this is actually the special edition version of the Sarlacc. Yuck. But there are no older pictures of the Sarlacc, surprisingly enough. So, of course, Boba Fett becomes digested in the Sarlacc, and that is something that we're introduced to in the book of Boba Fett. And I just, we wanted to mention this moment because, quite honestly, I think a lot of us, especially me, have been waiting just to see it in live action for probably 40 plus years.
Yes.
What do you think of that moment? Just finally getting to see that moment.
Yeah, because so many people were really hell-bent on Boba Fett had to have survived. He had to have survived. And then there were it was such a divide between the people of like, he's definitely alive. Oh no, he's definitely dead. And the relief of finding out that he did in fact survive. Bless.
Yeah, the thing I thought was really cool about it, especially like in this live action version, is how terrifying that scene was. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Just being walled up and basically like in those digestive walls, and seeing that stormtrooper that's probably been there since, I don't know, probably A New Hope. Just kind of being devoured pretty much.
That honestly is terrifying to me. It's why I can't watch Attack on Titan. It's why I'm like originally afraid of snakes. Like, I've gotten better with my fear of snakes, but that's why I'm afraid of stuff like that. So that terrified me. Like, whenever he flew in there, I was like, oh no, I don't like this one bit. No. Like, nope. No.
Yeah, what was really cool is just, kind of like the, the added moments that were, because honestly, like, it's just like a guy that's like, inside this, the belly of this beast. And, the fact that he, kind of crawled over to the stormtrooper and used his air hose, because obviously there's no oxygen down there and stuff. And, oh, by the way, shout out to Patton Oswalt, who, basically predicted this scene in a, uncut moment in Parks and Recreation.
Oh yeah.
He basically said it like word for word. Now, I don't know if Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni actually saw that and were like, yeah, let's do that, you know? But yeah, that's pretty much what he said. He was going to come out from the Maw of the Sarlacc and his hand was going to pop up. And yeah, it's
I
pretty,
saw
pretty
so many memes about that already. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
Patton Oswalt's a prophet. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So do you know anything about the guys that actually played Boba Fett?
Vaguely.
So let's talk about the history of the people that actually were behind the helmet. This is actually a picture of Jeremy Bulloch, and Jeremy Bulloch was he was a London veteran trained actor who, you know, basically just got the opportunity to step into the spurs of Boba Fett, and he did it so well that apparently when the scene where Han Solo is getting ready to be frozen in carbonite, he stepped onto the set and everybody was quiet because he just brought so much of a presence to it.
That's awesome. I did not know about that one.
Actually, he was also he also basically did another scene. He played an Imperial officer, I think, for a moment in Empire Strikes Back. You know, it's kind of like one of those things. It's like a family and friend affair. It's like, you know, if I can put you here, I can put you there, whatever. But I think the thing that made Jeremy Bulloch stand out was that, you know, he loved the fans so much.
Yeah.
He was definitely, you know, like so ingrained in the Star Wars universe. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
You have people that are just kind of like, yeah, whatever, it was a job, blah, blah, blah. But Jeremy Bulloch was not one of those guys. You know, he used to walk around in the Boba Fett costume. He'd sign all kinds of pictures, Stay Cool, Jeremy Bulloch and stuff.
Yeah, I heard about that. Like through like the 501st Circuit. But it always like makes me so happy whenever I hear that an actor or an actress does that. It warms my heart because that means that they love what they're doing. They love that character just, you know, just as much as the fans, which means that they're going to put a lot into that character. They're going to make sure that that character is, you know, perfect.
Yeah. Then of course, not too long ago, you know, Jeremy did pass away, and I think his wife, you know, pretty much keeps his Boba Fett legacy alive, you know. So, you know, he was just such a remarkable guy, just, you know, from, you know, like we were talking about the standpoint of loving what you do. And, you know, of course, we're going to talk about her later, but that's what I absolutely adore about Ming-Na Wen. Like, she is a Star Wars fan through and through, and she's so stoked to be playing Fennec Shand. Like, she's, every time you see her, she's absolutely like over the moon.
I love that.
Yeah. And also too, the thing I also love, you know, like when you kind of look at, you know, we were always talking about diversity and, you know, in pop culture and stuff like that.
Yep.
Having two people in the AAPI community that are in their 50s that are basically helming the Star Wars show is really kind of wonderful.
I love it. And I know that other people have like posted about this too. And I totally agree. But like the whole dad bod thing, you know, getting out of that like toxic standpoint of like all men have to look like this, you know, and that standard. And we're changing that. And I love it because he is such a badass, but he's got a dad bod and he's rocking it. And I love it. I'm just, I'm glad that we're seeing that.
In Tamara's defense, I think he obviously, he definitely worked out for Book of Boba.
Oh no, for sure. Like he doesn't look like,
you know, like me, like I'm 6'2" and I have like a barrel frame. You know what I mean? Like I have a very long, elongated chest.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think I kind of have the same kind of body type as Tamara.
Yeah.
You know, so he's a very thick dude. He's a thick piece of meat, that Mr. Tamara Morse.
Yep. So it's nice to see changes in movies and TV. It's nice to see this. It's refreshing. It gives me hope for the future with like how we're progressing.
And the other thing I love that I wanted to mention, you know what? I'm just going to put it out there. We had had a Star Wars episode, you know, quite a few Star Wars episodes in the past, but I did want to talk about a young Boba in of course, Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace. What did you think of that story? Just the fact that Boba was technically a clone of his father, just like all the other clones, basically. So, did that grab your attention at all? When it came
yeah,
to
it did, because like at that point I was more into it. But yeah, it kind of like threw me through a loop, because it was just such a weird like thing to do, to like add to that character. I thought, I was like, okay, that's a thing. All right. It was just like, I don't know. For me, I was kind of blindsided by it, but maybe other people saw it coming. I don't know.
Well, it's funny because speaking of Patton Oswalt, like I can understand how people just, didn't like this or whatever. Like he was saying, like he has a whole routine where he talks about going back and like, just strangling George Lucas for the prequels or whatever. And he meets George Lucas in the past and he goes, hey, so I got a bunch of prequels coming out for Star Wars. Are you a fan? Do you like Darth Vader? And he's like, yeah. Oh my God. With the, the helmet and the sword and all that stuff. Yeah, man, give me more. And he's like, so what does he do? He's like, well, he's just like a little kid and he loses his father, loses his mother and he's really sad, Yeah. And he's like, hey, well, what about Boba Fett? He's like, oh my God, Boba Fett with the helmet? No, that's the rocket pack. And he's like, great. And he goes, what's going to be what's going to be his thing? Oh, he's a little kid. He loses his father. He's really sad. So I can understand how people felt that way about the prequels. It's like, I don't care what these characters were like when they were little kids or whatever.
I loved it. I was about it. I was like, oh, this is my speed. I also love Jar Jar. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys.
Hey,
set the bar lower for me next time.
No, you know what? I'm gonna say I got a lot of love for these prequels. I mean, it's interesting because I lost my love of Star Wars because of the prequels, and now as an adult, because I see them in a different way, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I dig it. I get it.
Yeah, I was on that bandwagon way before. I was tuning it before it was cool.
Yeah, you were, for sure. So of course, Mr. Tamara Morrison, who played Mr. Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, is our Boba Fett now, which is such wonderful casting because it makes total sense, being the fact that, young Boba was a clone of his father, just like all the other clones basically look like Tamara Morrison. It was just such beautiful casting. And if you're not familiar, Tamara's just his work in that was so powerful that I guess they ended up going back and kind of, like rebooting the actual audio, for Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back. So, all the newer versions of those movies, you hear Tamara Morrison's voice the entire time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is such an incredible legacy already. You know what I mean? He must be like, just beside himself that they asked him to do his own show. Not to mention returning in The Mandalorian. But when it comes to voice actors, I do want to mention Mr. Jason Wingreen here. This was a legendary character actor. He worked with all kinds of people, Carol Connor, on All in the Family, all kinds of different things. But he was actually one of the main voice actors for Boba Fett before they ended up editing Tamara Morrison in. But, these guys, it's interesting because all these guys have, all these different components to bring to this character that really doesn't have a lot when it comes to just fleshed out characterization because of their actual, just what they brought to the table when it comes to the character, just really brought something special, I think, for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, there's Mr. Jason Wingreen right there. Rest in peace, sir. Another one lost. So let's get to The Mandalorian. So, of course, this is the moment where we see Boba Fett for the first time. We see those spurs, and he's walking over to Fennec Shand. What did you think about this moment when you first saw it? Did you think it was Boba Fett the first time?
Huh?
Did you think it was Boba Fett the first time when you first saw him walking?
Yeah, because I was like, they didn't. How? Like, that was my first reaction, was like, I was like, huh? How did they do? Like, what happened? How did he get out? Like, so it was immediate, like, I need to know everything.
So of course, there was that moment where we see Boba, behind or in front of the twin sons. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, that's Tamara Morrison. That's Jango Fett. That's totally got to be Boba. And everybody started freaking out.
I saw a lot of people be like, this is absolutely not him. That is not Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm. It was just too good to be true. It's just really, you know what I mean? It really was.
Yeah. There were so many of my friends that were like, this is not there's no way.
So then of course we get to the Mandalorian season 2. And this was an episode directed by Mr. Robert Rodriguez, of course. And this is, of course, where we do see Mr. Boba Fett appear for the first time. And I honestly, I was losing my mind, seriously. Just, I mean, when it comes to Boba Fett, he wasn't actually my favorite character when I was, a Star Wars fan, you know what I mean? Not even, he just looked cool to me. I think that's pretty much the consensus for a lot of people. He was just so cool looking, when you're a little kid and stuff. And that was the thing that he had, you know what I mean? Yeah. But then we're really just seeing him, with that gaffy stick, just beating the hell out of stormtroopers and stuff. And you're just cheering. You're like, oh my God, this is it, man.
When that was, I was losing my mind. I was literally just at the TV, I didn't have any words because I kind of weirdly enough was like, there's no way that was him. It was.
Yeah. And the other cool thing about it too was just, when he appears in The Mandalorian, he's not, he's not after Mando in some malicious way or whatever. He's just hey dude, I just want my armor. Give it to me. You know what I mean? It belongs to me. It belongs to my lineage. It belongs to my heritage. And, this is something that, I also noticed that, plays into, just the tradition of, Tamara Morrison and, his family, heritage and stuff, the fact that they're bringing a bunch of Maori and the actual fighting style and just, just the dance motions and stuff, the tribal dance motions is so wonderful. You know what I mean?
It was beautiful.
Yeah. And I just love that he has all these different nuances now. He's definitely got that sinister aspect still.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, obviously there's an honor to him and there's,
yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not this one note character anymore. He's definitely more fleshed out.
Yeah. I was right whenever I first watched him and was this dude is really smart and he's really resourceful and stuff. And I was as I'm watching the show, I'm yep, yeah, I was right. And he's smart and he is not a pushover. I love him though. He's amazing.
Yeah.
I now am a Boba Fett fan. So this really pushed it into that territory.
And it's, honestly, it's, of course, thankfully, thanks to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and, Robert Rodriguez, an executive producer. And, listen, and this man right here, Mr. Tamara Morrison, I mean, this guy's absolutely killing it. He's well past his 50s now. And he's just absolutely oh God, he's killing this role.
Yes.
And also, you know what, I'm going to do it right here on the show because, you know what, you guys really, I said it in an earlier post before when it comes to the show and, of course, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and all these guys have nothing but deep respect for the lore and stuff. And, they bring a lot to the table when it comes to what they, their production value and their direction and their story and all that stuff. But you know what, you got to kiss the ring. Cause I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for Mrs. Kathleen Kennedy, none of this would be happening. Okay. So, I mean, listen, give credit where credit's due,
Mm-hmm.
You gotta pay tribute to the Daimyo here. Kathleen Kennedy is the one that brought Boba Fett back. Nothing happens without her say so. Okay. She's the one that runs Tattooine. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. So then of course we get to the final moment of Mandalorian season 2, where of course he takes over, after killing Bib Fortuna, heavier Bib Fortuna at that point. And it was just such a spectacular moment, just in the fact that we see Book of Boba Fett scroll across the screen at that point, and we're just what the hell is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember that moment when it actually happened? Like, were you like, holy crap, what is
I
this?
literally was like, I have no idea what just happened. Like, it was so much, and I didn't even pick it up. Like, honestly, I was like,
it just said Book of Boba Fett coming 2021. That's all I remembered. I was like,
yep,
oh, what is this?
I know.
So let's talk about some of the important characters in Boba Fett's life now. Of course, Fennec Shan, played by the absolutely gorgeous Ming-Na Wen, who is absolutely just destroying it as Fennec Shan. Excuse me, let's give her credit where credit's due. Master Assassin Fennec Shan.
She's amazing.
What do you think of this character so far? Of course, we do remember her from Mulan, and of course, cult classics like Street Fighter. She played Chun-Li. Yeah. Oh man, she's been around for a long time.
She really has, yeah.
But we know her as Fennec Shan now. What do you think of her character?
I absolutely adore her. She is such a badass, but she has a heart on her, and I'm just like, like she won't take shit from anybody, but she is a good person deep down. Like, she cares.
She's got his back.
I really like her. I really, really like her.
She's definitely got his back. And I'll tell you what, the thing that really would, obviously in the grand scheme, it would make sense, the fact that, we're like, kind of delving into the Star Wars underworld and stuff. Like, if she was to backstab him, like, that would make total sense in some fashion, but I'd hate to see it.
Yeah, same. I agree with that.
You know what I mean? I feel like she really has his back. Like, that's his right hand, and she will be forever.
Yes.
And I'm really hoping that's kind of how it plays out.
Me too.
Because she's always at the ready. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, when he says, like, I need you, like, get behind me or whatever, like, she's right there. Click. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, rifle's already pointed. She's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And again, like I said before, I just love the fact that Ming-Na loves this role so much. She absolutely adores it. Every second of it.
I love that.
So I do have one prediction when it comes to the actual show. I don't know what you think about this, but I'd mentioned in passing that I think Miss Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones is going to show up. Of course, playing Kira, or the leader of Crimson Dawn.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're
right. A Han Solo story. Do you think she's actually going to appear?
I think so.
Well, we're getting into spoiler territory here for the first time in this episode, I think. But the 310 to Tattooine episode, which I had just mentioned, which of course, is the, kind of the great train robbery of, the Book of Boba Fett series, with Tusken Raiders learning how to ride speeder bikes, was just like, I didn't know I needed this.
I love how they went to attack it. They're like, and like, he's like, no, don't do it.
Yeah. So, those characters that were actually shooting at the, oh my God, like, and the poor Bantha, like, leave them alone. Oh my, they're just furry and cute, and they're just sitting there, and all of a sudden it's like, pew.
I was like, man, like, what are you doing? These poor things, like, they have nowhere to hide. This is unfair to them.
No, they don't.
I've never been so distraught over something in my life, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah, so on the train is those aquatic characters, fish people or whatever you want to call them, called pikes, and they were actually in Solo. They were in the Solo movie. So I actually think they are Crimson Dawn. Yeah, I think Kira is absolutely 100% going to show up in this particular story. It would make total sense to do so.
Yeah, I think so.
Also, I wanted to ask you too. I mean, there's a bunch of speculation. There's a bunch of rumors out there. There's a lot of quote unquote leaks or whatever. But honestly, like, what do you think is actually going to happen with Boba Fett after this story? Do you think it's more of like a Godfather story, or do you think it's actually going to be like maybe the Mando shows up and it's just like, hey man, I need your help. We're going to take over Mandalore again. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking there's going to be some crazy crossover that occurs.
I think maybe you're right, but I also kind of don't want to speculate. I kind of want to just be surprised. I just want to be surprised.
I think honestly, what I'm really hoping for is that, I do want a Sopranos or Godfather for the Star Wars universe. That's what I want, and I really think that's where they're trying to go with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like it's sort of like Tony Montana, like a rise to power thing. I think this is exactly what we're seeing. And he's not, obviously he's not exactly at the level where he needs to be yet. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have the respect in Tatooine that he needs to have. You know what I mean? Not like the Hutts, like when they come through and they're litter, like everybody stops. You know what I mean? Like the world just stops dead. He doesn't have that yet. So I'm really hoping that they really kind of, they play into that a bit more, when it comes to his evolution as a crime lord or whatever.
Yeah.
And honestly, the other thing I'm really hoping that they don't put him in a territory where he just becomes this like really super nice guy. I don't want that. You know what I mean? There has to
have
be
an
some
edge on him.
nuance there. Yeah, there's an edge. There has to be an edge there and it has to stay.
I don't think that they would make him lose his edge.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like that would basically be shitting on the character. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. So,
I don't think that they'll go that route, honestly.
Yeah, I'm really hoping not. But I don't know. I do see something like really, really huge happening at the end of the show. And I think, to a certain degree, this may be like Mandalorian season 2.0, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, we're just kind of speculating now, but I feel the same way that you do. I just want to enjoy the show for what it is.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Because honestly, like, I was in from episode 1. That's a really funny thing too, is like all these shows that we talk about, from Hawkeye to, Falcon the Winter Soldier to WandaVision and all these different things. It's like the fans like see the first episode and already they're automatically like, yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it's just like, this is the best show ever. You know what I mean? And
you gotta give it time, guys. It's got to simmer for a second.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, this story in particular is definitely simmering into something really unique and special, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. And, I guess the best thing that could actually come from this whole thing that we're talking about when it comes to history and all, just everything, Boba Fett is a legend. And now he really gets to shine as a character that people can love and appreciate and see these different nuances and stuff. And, like, I absolutely love this show and I absolutely love where this character is going. So any final words before we get off here?
Yeah, I wanted to save it for the end because I wanted to get into like the Boba Fett thing, but the whole Twi'lek thing, since we're kind of discussing a little bit on the TV show, I have to say I'm so happy that they, like, the male Twi'leks no longer have the bulbous things.
Yeah.
Also, did you notice that? Do you know your Twi'lek lore a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
So you know that the girls have ear cones and the boys don't. They have normal ears.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that the boy has cones?
I think I did. Yeah, the blue one, right?
So I know that like the LGBTQ plus community has been like, oh, confirmed trans. So I'm really hoping that they kind of like they don't necessarily have to say it, but like he's ours.
Well, there's something else that people have actually been looking at too. If you look very closely, Boba was kind of checking that guy out a little bit. That's what people are saying. I'm not putting something out there that's not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but
just for a second, since he can appreciate beauty in all its forms, basically.
Yeah, since I do notice that stuff, I just wanted to like give that a little shout out. So I'm thankful that they may have like that kind of, they may have, a trans male on the show, and I'm just happy about that. So just wanted to like throw that out there.
Yeah. Also want to give a shout out to Jennifer Beals, of course. Just an absolute legend herself. She, hasn't really shown up in the show all that much, but she just looks incredible.
Yeah, she does.
Just a timeless woman. That is our episode, guys. We hope you're watching the Book of Boba Fett. If you haven't, it's actually streaming on Disney Plus right now. What does there say? It's just, it's just an incredible journey for this character. I definitely have more of a deep love for him, as I'm certain Jenna does now.
Mhm.
And you know what? The thing I love too, also, I just want to mention this as well, because you being a cosplayer and stuff is, oh my God, you're definitely going to see some Tuscan dances at some conventions. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like flash mobs of people with gaffy sticks. Just,
Oh my
you know what I
God.
mean? There's so
Yep.
much stuff that's going to be added to the lore and fandom as a whole, and
a lot more Twi'lek outfits for the 501st.
that's right. That's
which
right.
means that I might finally be able to join. I've always been an unofficial member, but it's just because my Twi'leks aren't approvable.
So, guys, that is our show. Shout out to the cast and crew and everybody in Lucasfilm that are bringing us this wonderful continuation of Boba Fett's story. And yeah, join us next week. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much if you have subscribed already. We do appreciate just the continuous climb when it comes to subscriptions and views, and just really happy that you're loving the show. Jen and I absolutely love doing it, and that's really all there is to it. May the force be with you guys, and we'll see you next week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Praise to the Daimyo. We'll see you later. And I actually have to do the end thing too.
I kept wanting to do this like the whole time. I was like, put it down. No, put it down.
All right, here's the outro. Give me a second.